Okay, so it's been a little while. I did do the mezzanine that I was talking about. Let's take a look at that. And if you look, I've got all that free space now. I can post my banners, etc. I put some lights in over the workbench, moved the other light up and above and tied it into another circuit. But I've got a little bit of straightening up to do, a little bit of cleanup to do, but I'm getting the stuff off the paint cabinet and I'm kind of organizing things. Another thing that we're going to do, we are going to finish up the tailgate paint. I want to get that done before I move on to my next project. This is going to be something, the next project's going to be something that you wouldn't expect. But we're going to finish up the tailgate paint first. I've got some green, duplicolor green, and I got some clear coat. So we'll finish that up first. That way I can say it's done. And let's go look at the next project. Okay, check this out. I've got 2 diesel motors. I cleaned out my carport this weekend and removed a bunch of stuff that I'd been hoarding. My wife's been up my butt to get it done. And this is a Cat 4-cylinder 4-liter diesel industrial motor. I purchased it and actually put it into a Jeep project, but then there was more value in parting the Jeep out than it was to try to get it up and running. So I pulled it out, but it has an adapter from a SAE 3 bell housing to a Chevy transmission, and that one there is a 4LD, and not a 4LD, but a 4-speed. It is, I want to say the 4LD, but it's not the 4LD. But it is the Chevy 4-speed automatic. And so I am going to take this, because this is a valuable motor. It's got almost 0 hours on it. It's been sitting around for like 10 years while I've been trying to figure out what to do with it. But we're going to get this up and running and I'm going to sell it. So that's what the project's going to be. And then I've got this, which is an old Detroit 6.2 liter non-turbo diesel. And I have an adapter for this that I can put it in front of the Torque Flight 727 transmission in a Jeep. So I would one day, that's why I'm holding on to this, I'd like to put one of these in my J10 pickup truck, my J10, J20 pickup truck. So I'm going to keep both of these, but this one is the one that we're going to pull into the shop, and we're going to set up a stand and put some controls in place, a couple batteries, and see if we can get this thing running. Alright. Alright, so got this, I got the plate surround on, I cleaned up the tailgate a little bit. It's going to be good enough until it gets me to where I paint the front fenders, and then I'll take and redo the tailgate. But the window's up. I'm going to place it outside because we're going to bring that diesel in and try to get it to run. Wow, look at this. And yes, it is raining, but with the 700 R4 in there and the engine and the transfer case, that's probably 1,100 pounds in that poor little Ranger, but we'll get it done. Alright, we got the beast inside the shop. I'm not going to pressure wash it here, but it's raining outside. So I like to use, as degreaser, I like to use diesel fuel and dish detergent. They're concentrated stuff, and don't add any water to it, because the only time you add water is when you're spraying it off of the equipment. Okay, and then the detergent will turn into soap and clean off the diesel fuel and the grease. So I've used this pressurized sprayer, which is pretty decent, but it's a small amount, and I stepped up to basically a insect and weed sprayer where you just pump it up and shoot it. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to get this soaking, and then we'll pressure wash it in the morning. All right, so let me introduce you to what I'm working on here. I know that as I said before, basically going to pressure wash this and clean it, but one of the things that was befuddling me, because it's been so long, was why didn't these turbo oil lines line up? And then I realized that I rotated the turbo to make it fit in a truck. So I'm no longer going to fit it in a truck, so I can rotate this assembly back and all the old stuff will line back up. And the thing that keyed me on it was the wastegate was in the wrong position, and then I realized it was in the wrong position because I rotated everything. So I'll put that all back to normal, and I believe that I also have to move this intake nozzle because it has the option to move it. So I'll move that also to get everything lining back up. But yeah, let's get busy on this. Let's get this pressure washed. I'll pull the tranny and the transfer case off so that I'm just working with the transmission, or not the transmission, but the engine, because it's so big and heavy. So we'll get working on that and get this thing to where we can try to fire it up. Actually, I have never seen this run, so if we can make it run, that'll be a big deal. Okay. Looky. Okay, so this is where we're at. I got everything pretty much cleaned up with the pressure washer. Most of that goopy grime came off. True, it's not going to be like SEMA ready because you'd have to pick and scrape every little bit out. But this is, let me show you the adapter. So Phoenix Castings makes these adapters for the SAE, which are industrial bell housing connections. And so basically you have a ring that's set up so that you can bolt on whatever transmission you want. You have to order that from it. It's not universal. And then this bolts on to the original flywheel, so you use the original the original diesel flywheel. This bolts onto it, and then you're going to have to put a flywheel and torque converter on this. And you'll also have to put in a bushing, transmission front bushing in there. So that basically provides your bolt pattern conversion, and this provides the spacing for your torque converter to your transmission. And like I said, I'm gonna try to sell this as a complete unit, or I'll sell it as pieces, whatever the market demands. So let me get these parts put away, and then we'll start digging into this motor. I think the first thing I'll do is figure out where the turbo goes. Put that all back together. All right, so I got the turbo mounted to the way it's supposed to be. The oil lines are hooked up. So then I decided, hey, you know what? There's a lot of stuff going on underneath this Caterpillar cover. Let me check it out. So I did. And this is where the glow plugs and the injectors and the return fuel lines go. And it is a mess. And not a mess as in broken, just dirty. And so I am going to, it looks like I'm going to have to pull all the fuel lines and at least that heater bar, the electrical bar that goes across all the glow plugs, out, so I can get in there and clean it and inspect it. But yeah, let's go ahead and do that, because I don't want to try to start this thing. It's too valuable of a motor. I don't want to try to start it with all that gunk in there. So let me show you where I'm at, some of the grooviness that's going on. This is a PTO drive, hydraulic drive, that was on the front of the vehicle, or on the front of the engine. I do not want to run this dry when I'm trying to get it started, so I pulled it off, and I'm going to use this gasket to make a plate to cover that, and that's over here. On the motor, and that's a direct gear drive, so I'll cover that so that it doesn't spew oil all over the place. Ciphering some things here. This line was broken off and it was packed full of dirt, mud dauber dirt, and unfortunately it's going into the fuel pump. So I'm going to hook up a vacuum system to see if I can get that dirt out of there, because getting this off could be some trouble, or it's hard to get to, but hopefully I can get that out. And but I also pulled the shut-off valve, the fuel shut-off valve here, and it's this unit, and I wanted to find a plug, and I went searching on the internet, could not find a replacement plug for it, so I just might use micro connectors in order to get this thing running. But I've got to allow fuel into it to get it to crank. Alright, so I'm getting closer and closer. Let me show you what I did here. I got the turbo set up correct, with the exception of this. And I went online and I saw pictures, and I was a little bit concerned. I'm like, man, this thing is dumping right on top of the starter. Well, apparently I need to flip it so that it's up. But well, that doesn't really make sense either, because the paint marks show that it was down. So I'll review that. If I can flip it up without it hitting here, that's what I'll do. And but I got this all together. When I go to fire the motor, I'm going to definitely check to make sure that I'm getting oil to the turbo. I don't have the plumbing for the turbo to the intake, so I'm going to have to maybe get some exhaust tubing and put something together, and a couple couplings. But made good progress. I did not have to pull all this apart in order to get the dirt out, and I mean it was 2 to 3 inches of dirt. And it wasn't dirt, it's more like mulch, because from what I understand, this was a diesel power unit for a large chipper. So it makes sense that there's like chip sawdust in here. So got all that out. I did not want to get too rough with this, because all these return fuel lines, I didn't want to take a chance of busting and blowing them off. But I also came to the determination that the filter and the water separator, I don't need to have them on here to start it. So I'm not going to fuss with those. So making progress. I'm excited, man. This is fun. I've never really worked on a diesel. So getting this thing to fire is going to be cool. All right, hang in there. So I was able to get in here and flip this, and just so that you guys know, it is on a rotating coupling, so I was able to put that with the exhaust shooting up. And regarding the return line, I was able to get the clog out of there. This whole thing will actually, it's got a banjo joint on the one side and a soft line over here. I was able to get that all out, blow it out and clean it. The fluid, or I should say the fuel, looks real good. I mean, the fluid that was in the filter, obviously it's old and probably won't fire, but it was clean. So I feel pretty confident that this is all good, and so I'll be able to run new diesel in there. I think I'm going to use a combination of ATF, 50% ATF, 50% diesel. I'm going to prime the filter, the fuel filter, with that, pump that through, and hopefully the detergents and everything in the ATF and the lubricant will help free up any sticking rings and injectors. And then it looks like I tried to look for a connector for this. I can find these all day long, but I can't find a connector, so I don't know what that connector is. So I think I'm going to use some micro connectors on there and see if I can get those on there, and that way I can activate the fuel valve so I can try to run this thing. Alright, well, I got a new fuel shutoff valve on Amazon. It looks like it's the same body size and plunger depth. The reason I bought this was it's a single lug, so I can provide a hot wire to this. It grounds through the case like it normally should. This one here has two connectors, one for a ground, one for a hot, so I don't have to hunt down a Delphi plug or connector for this. So this was only like 25 bucks. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in after I test it, and we should be good to go then. Other than finishing up some of the fuel system, we should be getting ready to make a little stand for this and put some controls in and crank this thing and see if we can get it running. We're going to close this video because it's creeping up on 18-20 minutes, so we're going to close this video out, and you'll have to take and come back for the next video so that we can see this thing run. All right, Rock Lawrence out. Talk to you later. Bye.